In any political party, infighting is always inevitable, regardless of the size, structure, etc. of a party. And I think it's going to happen in Jeremy Corbyn's new party, especially when, as I've said, tankies are flooding to join it. You've got people saying that this is going to be a purely socialist only party. People demanding that people take purity tests if they were like ex-Labour members. Honestly, some of the stuff that is being said out there online and openly by people wanting to, like, saying that they are part of this party. Again, there is no party at all you've joined is a mailing list. But there you go. Yeah, it's interesting. And today we're looking at some, I don't know, what would you call this? Some blue on blue action, because you've got a reform councillor openly cancelling his membership because apparently reform has become tainted by ex-Tories. And oh boy, this could be quite interesting if this, starts to really kick off in Wales. Because remember, one of Reform's big targets next year is going to be the Senate election. They are trying desperately right now to really take Wales. Like, they really, really want to take Wales. But if your party starts to get infighting in Wales, starts to be undermined by all this stuff, yeah, it's not going to be a good look, which is honestly what we want. We really want that to happen. So it is inevitable, of course, this was going to happen. We've talked about this before. How are these people going to sort of interact, or when they start interacting, when they get told, have to work together, what's going to happen? Well, eventually infighting, and we can only hope this goes the distance, because this is already juicy enough. This could get even better if this really starts kicking off even more in Wales. But we'll see what happens, and we can only hope for the best, which is more infighting here. So before we jump on into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, the one off today's link called Buy Me Coffee, the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well. So let's go on into this. So, councillor cancels reform membership, claiming the party is now tainted by ex-Tories. So, a councillor now from North Wales has cancelled his membership with Reform, claiming that he was disillusioned by former Tories joining and now tainting Nigel Farage's party with their legacy. But Reform, of course, described the old Corwin councillor David Carr's claims and criticism as sour grapes, claiming that the party rejected his attempt to officially sign up as a councillor, a claim that old Corwin member denies. In an interview with the LDR, Councillor Carr also took aim at the Conservative Party, which he claimed also provided very weak opposition to Coyne's first independent, Labour and Plaid Cymru coalition. The war of words follows the Llandudno former Conservative councillor Louise Emery, and of course Tom McGonery now jumping ship to Reform UK last week. In the days that then followed, it then emerged that Councillor Carr, an independent councillor who was also a member of Reform. Gee, an independent member who was also a member of Reform. Gee, I keep on saying it. I keep on saying it, guys. Watch independents. Sometimes they're not as independent as they claim. You've got to keep an eye out on them. Anyway, this now fallout then continued when Councillor Gorian Edwards resigned then from his cabinet position and then was removed from the first independent group for not then declaring his membership of another party. Again, It's what they're meant to do, but once you join a party, that stops you then being independent. Um, Councillor Carr, though, also said he had left Reform on Wednesday after being a member since June, claiming that he was unhappy that Councillor Emery was then present at the party's Conwy leader. He said, I left Reform yesterday, Wednesday, 30th of July, and I wasn't a member for very long, he said. I thought that this was a new way forward, and it seems the Conservatives just moved in. Which again, a lot of these Conservatives are. You are getting a lot of people like Jake Berry. When Jake Berry jumped over um, to Reform, a lot of we covered it from like Conservative Home. Even Will Atkinson was like, "Yeah, this isn't a big loss for conservatism," which was again hilarious because it really showed what they thought of Jake Berry, who at one point was saying he was like God's gift to like Northern conservatism, that he was like the founder of like the Northern Research Group. If you remember all that from back in the day, yeah, and they are just jumping ship. The opportunists are jumping ship because they see this as they think this is which way the wind is blowing, and they're jumping ship, hoping that if they jump first, maybe they might be given some good positions. Maybe they might get the opportunity to run as an MP. That's what they're hoping. That is literally what they are hoping. So back to this work. So I thought, of course, there's a new way forward. It now seems the Conservatives just moved in. Councillor Louise Emery, who was the deputy leader of Conwy County Council, when they put the council tax up, she initiated working from home, the 4 weekly bin collections. She went along with whatever Councillor Emery believed in them, in the policies or not. She went along with them. The first thing they should have been done is become independent, then apply to join Reform. But the way that they did it, but that's the way, of course, they did it. It is so obvious that they are now worried about losing their seats. Councillor Emery only won by just a handful of votes last time. They were both worried about their seats. It was more Louise, not so much Tom. That's Councillor Montgomery. He is, of course, not so tainted by the past. She was she was deputy leader, and all the things that she's done, chair of local Conservatives, all the things I do not agree with. All of a sudden, she's then a member of Reform, because Reform are desperate for legitimacy. They are hoovering up any experienced Conservative candidate they can, because what they need more than ever, as we've been seeing and covering recently, they need people who actually know how to like run a council, to do the day to day. They need those people. They are hoovering them up left, right, and center because they are desperate as they can to get a hold of these people. So is it any wonder this guy's now gone, gee, there's an awful lot of conservatives around here. So back to this. So you've got to, of course, put new people in. Everyone is fed up of the same old councillors, aren't they? I did, of course, speak to Louise, but she didn't seem very enthusiastic. I sent her an email and expressed concerns. None of this is, of course, personal. If people want to join Reform, that is fair enough. But for her to take a leading position, maybe this just does come down to sour grapes, but it's very interesting that this has happened. I've been wondering when this might happen, that these people who join Reform but never really like the Conservatives suddenly see all these Conservatives joining their party. What then happens? How do they respond? Well, in this case, this guy looks like sour grapes, but how many other people in Reform are also seeing them hoover up all these ex-Conservatives and are now starting to get maybe a little bit jittery on that front. So anyway, it continues. So that is, of course, the most annoying thing. Nigel Farage said that we will not be a home for Conservatives who want to keep their seats. Oh, please. Nigel's party is just home for any ex-conservatives he wants, because he wants that experience. He wants a whiff of legitimacy. He knows that any of those ex-conservatives, if they're under the banner of reform, it's a hope that they might do better, slightly better. That's the hope. So, of course, now that's what's happened, he continues. I was hoping for at least new people would come along and things would change, because my residents are now fed up with filthy streets. They are fed up with council tax increasing year on year. I was excited to join reform. I was enthusiastic that something was going to change. Yeah, on the reform, things are not going to change, certainly for the better. That's for sure. But when it is, of course, now the same old Conservatives, I don't want to be a part of it. So I decided to leave. If it's going to be the Conservatives again, it doesn't inspire confidence. However, Reform is now claiming that this is all sour grapes. So Reform, of course, claims that Council's Carr comments are now nothing more than sour grapes. In an official group response issued by Reform UK. Wow. So him leaving has generated an official response from Reform UK. Like, that is quite significant. The fact that this guy's comments has generated a such a response. And I think they want to get across, oh no, this is just sour grapes. But remember that issue of those two groups rubbing up against each other, something that seems to be gathering a little bit more friction the more this goes along. So expect probably more of this to happen in the future. So Council Carr's claims obviously was more than sour grapes. In official response, it said David Carr was, of course, a Conservative member. Then he joined the Labour Party, seemingly, of course, to get elected in 2022, he said. She said. He then, of course, left the Labour Party and became an independent. He joined the Liberal Democrats, then left them to join Reform, all in 3 years. She then added, our understanding is that David applied to be approved to be a Reform councillor, and he was rejected by the vetting process. Wow, that's probably the first time I've ever heard of someone being rejected by the vetting process at Reform. Considering what recently just happened in Doncaster, I am very, very surprised. Very, very surprised indeed that someone got rejected by Reform's vetting process. This is, of course, nothing more than sour grapes, it continues, from a councillor now desperately seeking for a way to get re-elected. We joined Reform because we believe in real change for the future. Despite, of course, being a Reform member, Councillor Carr denied that he attempted to become a Reform councillor. He then responded to this. He said, I did not apply to become a Reform councillor. The vetting process takes 5 or 6 weeks. They said that they were overwhelmed with the Senate vetting for the Senate candidates. I never had any interest in becoming a Reform councillor. I just joined because I was quite enthusiastic about how things and what they were saying. I was quite happy just to be a member. I thought new people were going to come in, not tainted by the past, but it seems it's the same old Conservatives again. It's put me off. So that was, of course, his response to that. But again, very, very funny that he was rejected by the vetting process. Considering the number of stuff that's come out of people who have apparently gone through this vetting process, like I say, check out what recently happened in Doncaster just this week as well on that front with Reform. But yeah, hilarious. Honestly, hilarious. Anyway, let's finish this off. So Councillor Carr is, of course, a long-standing Conservative and maintains that he was not a member of any political party between 2018 and 2022, until he said that he was asked to stand for Labour in May of 2022. He said he left Labour in September, disagreeing of 22 with their manifesto. Whilst also remaining an independent councillor, he said he then joined the Liberal Democrats in July of 2024, as he liked their social care policies, before then leaving in May of 2025. Again, this guy's changing parties like it's a t-shirt. Still an independent, he's then said he would join Reform in June of 2025 and then left on July the 30th. Councillor Carr also took aim at Crawley Conservative groups, saying that the Conservatives did not provide any opposition on Crawley Council, he said. It seemed to be the opposition on Conwy. It is very hard, of course, when you are on your own. They just went along with all the things that all the council managers wanted for all those years. And now Councillor Emery, now pops up and says, "Oh, I'm leader of reform." She wants change. People are asking the question: if you wanted change, you could have done it in the past. That's why I didn't want to be a member. I was disillusioned when that happened. The leader of Conway's Conservative group, Councillor Cheryl Carlisle, also then responded to Councillor Carr's criticism, saying that Councillor Carr also referred to Councillor Carr and his former affiliation, now with several political parties and groups. Carr is, of course, entitled to his opinions, but members of the public are able to watch online the council and scrutiny committees meetings and will no doubt be able to form their own opinions as to the value of Conwy Conservatives Group voting record against the exorbitant council tax rises, consulting and cutting on vital frontline services, she said. She said, hopefully, Councillor Carr will find a party or political group that will finally accept him, having been a member of in excess of at least 5 groups in 3 short years that he's been a councillor. Yeah. Again, this guy seems to change parties like, t-shirts. But the thing that is interesting to me on that is the fact you had that rubbing. Those new reform people who don't really like the Conservatives and those Conservatives jumping ship into reform. How much friction really is there? How much friction really is there between those two groups? And to say that also generated like an official response from Reform UK. Like, yeah, this guy's changed political parties again, like, someone changes the socks every day, but holy moly. I think there is a lot more friction going on in that party between those two different groups than I think they're willing to admit, or it's a known issue that they are worried about, and they're worried about it flaring up. So we'll see. Like I say, hopefully, fingers crossed, that does flare up and become quite the problem for them to deal with, because obviously it would generate some fantastic comment, and it's always good to see some, good old infighting between reform members, because apparently on some councils, some of them are already starting to, shall we say, be a bit annoyed with each other, but maybe on that issue later. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.